so much.
3 years of war with Russia and Ukraine continues its push for NATO membership. This time, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he is ready to step down if it meant Kiev would be admitted to the military alliance. He has been calling for Ukraine to be given NATO membership as a part of any deal to end the war. But the US-led alliance has been reluctant to commit, now more than ever.
Якщо мир для України, якщо вам дуже потрібно, щоб я залишив свій пост, я готовий. Друга історія, можу поміняти це на НАТО. Якщо є такі умови, одразу.
Zelensky and US President Donald Trump have engaged in a war of words since American and Russian officials met last week in Saudi Arabia for the first high-level talks in 3 years. After the talks, Trump repeated Russia's narrative that Ukraine started the war, prompting reaction from Zelensky, who said the US president was living in a disinformation space governed by Moscow. Trump did not let go of that comment and called Zelensky a dictator without election. Reacting to the comment, the Ukrainian president said he was not offended because he will definitely never be a dictator. He went on to call himself a legitimately elected president.
Щоб довго про це не говорити. Я фокусуюсь на безпеці України сьогодні, а не за 20 років.
Zelensky called for Trump to meet him before any summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin, while also expressing his desire to see his US counterpart as more than a mediator between Ukraine and Russia. When asked about Ukraine giving US access to its critical mineral deposits, Zelensky said that the officials of both the countries are in touch and there has been progress on the deal. Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said they expected an agreement would be signed this week. Zelensky said if the minerals deal is signed, US troop deployment in Ukraine would be a logical step as a security guarantee. He also refused to acknowledge that Ukraine owed Washington $500 billion, a figure often cited by Trump as the total wartime aid provided by the US to Kiev. A support tracker by Germany's Karl Institute for the World Economy shows that the US has so far committed $114 billion in total support to Ukraine. Europe continues its push to strengthen Ukraine, with leaders of France and UK heading to US to convince Trump not to abandon Kiev in pursuit of a peace deal. This as Russia and US teams plan to meet again this week to discuss improving ties after the war in Ukraine. Meanwhile, European leaders will hold a special summit on the 6th of March to discuss Ukraine and European defense. As Russia's offensive continues, on Sunday, Ukraine's Air Force Command spokesperson said that record 267 Russian drones were launched in a single coordinated attack on the country. Ukrainian officials said 13 regions were targeted, and while many of the drones were repelled, those that were not caused destruction to infrastructure and at least 3 casualties in Ukraine. Meanwhile, thousands rallied in support of Ukraine on the 3rd anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion, which began on the 24th of February 2022. The UN General Assembly is set to vote on a text resolution drafted by Ukraine and the EU on the war today, which says it is urgent to end the war this year and clearly repeats the Assembly's previous demands, which is an immediate cessation of Russian hostilities against Ukraine and also an immediate withdrawal of Russian troops. Reuters reported that the US has declined to co-sponsor the text and proposed its own resolution for a General Assembly vote, which calls for a swift end to the war but makes no reference to its territorial integrity. Later on Friday, the US also gave the same draft resolution to UNSC and is now pushing for the 15-member UNSC to vote before the 193-member General Assembly. Our correspondent Anas Malik is on the ground in Ukraine, closely tracking the developments around the country's ongoing war with Russia. And he has sent us this report. Take a look.
Tanks like these have been used by the Ukrainian side to patrol and to attack the Russian positions. Despite of them originally being from Russia, they are now used as war trophies. We're on one of these captured Russian tanks, and which are currently being used to surveil, but just coming back from the front line and being used in active combat as well.